Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Karol Skrzmowski, and I would like to invite you to our today's live stream, the IT Talent Gap, brought to you by Loosely Coupled, hosted by Bridging the Gap, which is an open source project keen on sharing knowledge about enterprise application integration. Today we're talking about a very burning topic, one that I have experienced for the last few months personally while searching for a new job. Very burning because the market today, especially in IT, is horrendous. It's a nightmare to find a job. It's a nightmare to go through all those processes, and it's difficult for a lot of people, difficult for recruiters as well, and difficult for all the companies trying to hire the best talent. Whew, that's not going to be an easy conversation, but we're going to do no bullshit this time around. We're going to tell it as this. And joining me today on our live stream is Phillip Poynton, a recruiter with 18 years of experience, now recruiting in the Salesforce ecosystem, so very specialized, and my personal friend, whom I've met while working with PwC Poland. Philip?
Hello. Hi, Karol. Thank you for having me. And hello, everybody. You're my personal friend. I remember that onboarding we had together. It was pretty hilarious, right? The weird socks kind of connected us, right?
Yeah, so one of the new testers onboarded at the same day as both of us joined PwC said he was collecting socks, very weird socks with different images and such. And we encouraged him to pull up the leg and just show the sock. And then Philip sitting next to him realized he had the exact same socks on.
Yeah, I thought they were normal.
I mean, yeah, that's perfectly fine. But that was a hilarious situation. Philip, so we're gonna chat recruitment.
Yes,
Quite a
with
topic,
pleasure.
right? With pleasure.
Totally open and transparently. A bit of a disclaimer maybe before we start is, I'm not holding back. I just want to share my observations. Now, yes, you introduced me right there. 18 years of experience. I've seen a lot. I've made huge mistakes. My only approach is treat everyone the same way I would want to be treated and improve yourself every day. One little thing. And 18 years in the game, started it totally by chance, by accident, like many recruiters do. And I'm still doing it, still loving it, and still enjoying the challenge because it's quite a cool but demanding job as well.
All right, so the format of today's live stream is that we're going to be going through several topics and several angles of recruitment from the candidate perspective, from the recruiter perspective, as well as the perspective of companies, which we don't have anybody representing a specific company here today, but let's try to emphasize with companies and see how they are dealing with recruitment or struggling with recruitment at the time. I certainly was on the other side of the table recruiting somebody a few months back, so I have a little bit of experience, but there's a lot to it. There's a lot of problems, especially, I mean, Philip can probably showcase more than I do in terms of how is this working with various companies to recruit people for them. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Substack, just pop questions in. I believe we're not seeing any questions coming from Substack, unfortunately, because we don't have that in Restream in the chat. But all the questions that are coming through LinkedIn and YouTube, we'll be able to see them and pop them on the screen. So keep those questions coming. Keep engaged, commenting on our chat, and let's dig into it.
Absolutely. Just, ask us anything. These are the best moments when we've got some interaction going on and you can ask us anything, really. I'd love the most challenging questions as well.
Yeah. So apart from the Salesforce ecosystem, which is a very particular area of expertise in terms of recruitment, what other kind of recruitment have you done over the years?
Oh, wow, good question. So I started off working in an agency that was in London, helping unemployed people back into work. These were European-funded initiatives, and I was working the 5 host boroughs of the Olympic Games in London. So it's a massive project, lots of money put into revitalizing these 5 hosting boroughs of London, and with that came employment. So first it was training people, to be involved in the excavation, the digging, the building, the construction of, the Olympic town. This is, we're talking back in, what was it? When was the Olympics in London? 2012? No, I think it was earlier than that. Sorry, 2008, perhaps. Can't remember. Maybe, yeah, Carol, I can see you searching it. So
2012, you're spot on here.
Yeah, am I? Okay, cool, good.
Yeah.
So helping unemployed people back into work. It was all funded. It was a free service. We also have free recruitment services to companies, and we're talking pretty much entry-level jobs. Retail, also commercial roles, simple admin jobs, but then also the Olympic Games, covering all aspects of construction, building, labor work. So there was a lot going on. So it was a nice start for me, because I had the chance to build connections, relationships with these people, understand their circumstances, if they were unemployed, how much they need to earn to kind of make a living and afford their lifestyle in London. Then I specialized in being a lone parent advisor, so helping lone parents, predominantly, of course, women. And I was working closely with job centers, so calculating their benefits and really calculating how many hours can they afford to work, because that's the thing in England, the system's broken there. So sometimes you're better off unemployed, because you get childcare, child support care, you get benefit, you get your house paid for. So it's not easy, even if you want to go back into work. So really nice start for me, and I think this is where I could utilize my empathy, wanting to help people and really tailor the approach there. And it was a fantastic foundation for me. Then I went to commercial recruitment, working in an agency that specialized in hiring CEOs. And it's not CEOs, executive search. This was civil enforcement officers, so your parking attendants. So I always laughed. I always said, yeah, I work in CEO recruitment. So that was fun. And that was a fantastic experience for me, because it was very busy, very demanding, and a lot of eligibility criteria and things like that. So that was fun, and I learned there to man a temp desk. We had around 250 people constantly working, a lot of work. So it was a fantastic experience for me. And then I decided to go my own way and open a boutique agency, and I would do anything I could get my hands on to just do business. And bad approach looking back at it, but again, I just wanted to survive and make a living. So but I gradually started getting into digital marketing. Also by chance, I had a customer who asked if I could help, and I was happy to help. But at that time, I was doing programmers, I was doing admin workers, security guards, and digital marketing. And then gradually I went really deep into digital marketing, and I was contracted to work for Yum Brands, so owners of Pizza Hut, KFC, and their head offices. They were doing a lot of e-commerce stuff, and that's where I got my real digital marketing experience in recruitment. And from there, I came back to Poland and entered the world of IT pretty swiftly. And since 2015, I've been working in the IT field, and for the past close to 6 years now, specifically Salesforce. So before I joined Salesforce, I was always telling myself, Philip, you need to find your niche. You can't be a recruiter that does everything and nothing at the same time. You got to find a niche. I remember introducing myself at networking events. I'm a recruiter. What do you specialize in? Nothing and everything. So, this was find a niche. And by chance, like a lot of people also in the Salesforce world, I discovered my niche and went really into it. And and that's where I am today, 6 years in, still with Salesforce, recruiting solely Salesforce, and still loving it.
I think a lot of jobs that happen by chance are very, very interesting and unique. I myself landed in my field, in my expertise, purely by chance, because I was doing an internship with a consulting company, and they, for some unknown reason, well, unknown to me, they liked me so much that they hired me as a junior without any plan for me as a junior. And then they just were like, Yeah, all
You
right.
know
We
what?
put you in
That's
that
what
team.
everyone's saying. That's what all the gurus are saying now. Hire for skills, hire for traits, hire for soft skills. The tech skills, the hard stuff can follow. If you don't
Yeah,
hire people with the right attitudes, culture fit, it's not going to work. Simple as that, right?
yeah,
And
that's very
by the way,
true.
hello, Stefan. I see you're with us, so really good to see you.
Yeah, hi, Stefan. Hey. Stefan was kind enough to let us use a few screenshots from his personal collection of various recruitment fails. I did my own research as well, so we have a bunch of screenshots and different situations that happen in recruitment nowadays, especially in IT. We'll be diving into those in a moment because we want to show you those various perspectives, right? So we want to talk about the perspective of a candidate. We want to talk about the perspective of a recruiter working between two sides. And then we want to look a little bit on a perspective of a company and sometimes the huge chaos that happens in a lot of companies nowadays. So starting with the perspective of a recruiter, which is, I suppose, the one that will be most wanted here on this stream. Candidate, most wanted on this particular stream. Well, candidates struggle. I've seen so many people on LinkedIn just chatting about their struggles getting a job, finding a job, switching to a new job if they actually have a job, or just being unemployed for months and struggling on the market just to find anything, and
Well,
not
Carol,
even if they're
you
fields.
can relate to this, man. You've just
Yes.
gone through it recently, right?
Yeah. So my personal story is I've been hit by pretty much by two restructurings in 1 year. I suppose that's tough luck. So I was having a very nice safe position with a big company, and I felt like, okay, I had enough of politics. I want to go back to consulting and do some actual technical work instead of fighting politicians all the time. So I found a job. I negotiated a contract. Everything was fine. Everything was beautiful. 2 months in, they miscalculated the project pipeline. I'm sorry, anybody on probation period and expensive and on the bench, out. Over 30% of consultants were on the bench, so basically they had a must to clean up the house, right? Costs. And then another company decided to restructure that I found a job with. They decided to restructure and they fired 1/3 of the staff, something like that, because they decided to go a completely different direction. So today marks the end of 3 months that I was unemployed. Luckily, from tomorrow onwards, I'm beginning a new job as a consultant. So I'm out the game. I'm no longer going to be bothered by recruitment for the next few months, I hope, or even more, hopefully. We'll see about that. I
Never
mean,
say never.
never
You're
say
being
never.
active.
There's
So with a
still 2
delay,
months.
they might be coming back to you with a delay.
There's still 2 months of probation period that I just need to pass to feel safe. The problem that I'm seeing with a lot of people is that the whole process of recruitment and finding a job, it's pretty much like a second job. It's a lot of effort with very little results. It's a lot of cold applying, a lot of work to tailor your CV, to find advice, what should be the CV like, how to behave on the process, or even just to land an interview. You can send up to 100 applications to different places, and from that you can have 2 or 3 interviews. It's that bad at this point. And it's that bad not only because there are so many people on the job market, it's that bad because the job market is just simply tragic. Going through a lot of people being unemployed or searching for a new job, through recruiters or recruitment agencies doing poor or mediocre jobs at times. Of course, there are great recruiters out there as well. I know quite a few, and I'm keeping in touch with them all the time because why not? And then also companies which struggle to clearly define what roles they need and how many people they actually need, or sometimes trying to find unicorns, so people who do not exist or who would be a whole department. And this whole picture, that's just a heavy topic. If we would dive into all of those in details, we would be sitting here probably till tomorrow. That's my educated guess. But let's start off with that perspective of the candidate. So if you have a profile on LinkedIn and your profile is, well, fairly up to date and it's searchable, because that's a key issue. Some profiles are not searchable. This is another thing that we'll jump into when we're going to be talking about the work of a recruiter. So if you're searchable, you'll sometimes get offers, sometimes get questions from recruiters. Now, those questions sometimes are genuine sourcing because the recruiters really want to find the best candidate. Sometimes are just horrendous cold calls, which are basically spam and nobody's going to reply to that. So let me show you a few examples from my personal library of screenshots. So I hope you see this quite well. If you would look at this, so these are screenshots from my messages in LinkedIn. We have somebody recruiting for an enterprise architect in Amsterdam, Utrecht. I live in the Netherlands, so that's close to home for me. And it's perfectly fine. So this is on June 27th. It's very early in the morning, 6:52. I responded at, what was that time? 7:23. So what, half an hour later? Ghosted. No answer. Nothing. Again, another job here. April 7th. Posted, the message was sent at 2 p.m. I responded 2 minutes later. Nothing. No response, no details, nothing, no conversation, no relationship, nothing so far, right? So this is one of the problems that some recruiters just figure out. They're going to spam 1,000 people at a time and then just reap whoever calls back, whoever answers. So sometimes they get a lot of answers and they just disregard the rest, don't even bother coming back to them. They just get ghosted. But, well, it is what it is, right? Another lovely problem that we're seeing is poor vetting. So this is a conversation I had with an owner of a recruitment agency some time ago in May while I was searching for a new job. I applied through their site because I found the job posting. And I found that she is responsible for that particular process. So I was thinking like, okay, to up my chances, I'm going to just directly reach out to that recruiter, well, that head of the agency at this point, because she was running that process. I mean, yeah, perfectly fine. Well, first of all, she looked at my CV, drawn a completely wrong conclusion about my CV with words that are non-existent in my CV, because I don't have cloud engineering in my CV. I do have Azure, but only Azure integration services because I work as an integrator. But I'm not keen on working in Azure specifically. And the job posting was specifically for an integration architect. So my CV, basically 9 pages of that CV scream integration, integration, integration. While for some reason she figured I'm a cloud engineer. And I was amazed. And then when I asked what brought her to that conclusion, well, ghosted. That's poor vetting, right? If anything. And then another fun example in terms of this is poor vetting, but this is also poor searches. And Philip, you're going to tell us more about searching on LinkedIn and doing Boolean strings, right? Because that's a very important thing in the work of a recruiter when sourcing talent. Well, how somebody came to a conclusion that I'm a tester with my CV and my LinkedIn profile, that's something very interesting, because as far as I remember, LinkedIn does not enable you to search by certificates. And I do have a tester certificate. I have actually an ESTQB certificate. So I would be a tester, but I did it for the purpose of actually being able to talk to testers and understand testers rather than apply for a role of a tester. or some other roles like B2B contract for architects with ServiceNow. I have no relationship with ServiceNow, etc., etc., etc. These are things that happen all the time on my LinkedIn. I don't have to go that far in my chat to find these kind of conversations, and that's pretty much the reality of a lot of IT specialists, that they just are found by recruiters, but for some reason, not exactly in the roles that they should be found in, right? Then another lovely thing is automation. If you never tried this before, I dare you to put an emoji in your name on LinkedIn, in your profile. Then you'll see how many people use automation to message you. I don't know, Philip, what's your take on automation here?
I think this is a little hack I shared with you, right? So a few years ago.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, so I came across it. You asked me, why do I have this? I had a magnifying glass back in the day, and I said,
Yeah.
And I told you, and then you started using it, and it's nice to see it, that you're experiencing it, so you know what we're on about. So you know exactly it's an automated message, which isn't a bad thing. Automation is used widely, but there's just best practices that a lot of recruiters don't follow. I use automation. I'm heavy. I'm a fan, but there's certain limits you have to set. So you mentioned, mass messages going out, and yes, there's also reasons for this. I've worked in the corporate world in big recruitment teams, so recruiters as employees also measured their KPIs on numbers of emails sent out as well. So bear that in mind as well. Everyone's being measured. Especially in big corporations. I've long gone are those days for me. It's more of a quality approach than a quantity approach. So I saw Stefan's message earlier on. It's very relevant. But coming back to this, then I have a practice of mine that I've developed and I've shared with other recruiters I work with, and that's 28 messages a day max. Because it's manageable. On top of let's say the campaigns that I run using recruitment products on LinkedIn, I use a corporate recruitment account, so it gives you a lot of tools to access talent, and the Boolean searches, the razor searches, it's all. I'm fortunate. I work in a very niche market. For me, I get more value in actually being part of the community and creating initiatives and events. So over the years, I've got to meet a lot of people, and I'm just growing my network through human relationships, which is amazing. But of course, I hire across all of Europe as well, 6 countries across Europe. So there, unfortunately, I don't have that position as I do, let's say, in Poland, where I'm based. So it comes down to LinkedIn searches, LinkedIn campaigns, projects, and there's a ton of new tools coming from LinkedIn, a lot of AI generated messages. And I've been reading some of these, and I can tell straight away when it's a LinkedIn AI generated message. You can't miss it once you know it, right? And it's sad that there's no edge that recruiters should be using, little things which I know you're going to share with us as well later today, which are really cool too. But this is a great thing to spot automation, but don't look at automation as a bad thing. It's a daily thing nowadays. Just be aware of it. I think that's the right thing to do.
Be aware of it. And then if you actually have that emoji in your profile, well, LinkedIn would probably say that you're breaching some sort of a licensing agreement between you and LinkedIn when you registered, because they ask you to put your real name in. So putting an emoji in is a little bit of a breach of that agreement. But a lot of people do that not without a reason. And the funny thing is, my profile is in 3 different languages. So I have my LinkedIn profile in Dutch, English, and Polish. And I have a different emoji for each of those profiles. So when people are sending me messages using automation and they don't check for the name, they actually use the name field from LinkedIn, I know what is their language that they're viewing the profile in. So this is quite useful to also get an understanding of what is the language of use of that particular recruiter. So if you're finding jobs internationally, this is a very nice hack to have. If you have your profile translated to multiple languages, might come in handy to ease your conversation, especially if you actually use multiple languages yourself. Yeah, hacker move, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. So it's worth to know the limitations and the different perks of LinkedIn. And this is one of the small hacks that you can do using your profile to vet the recruiters that are coming to you. Of course, if your profile is searchable, which is a completely different topic, and we'll get into that in a second. All right, but other examples of different behaviors and different problems with recruitment. So this is a lovely email from my inbox in Gmail. I applied for a job of an enterprise architect with a company. By the first line of the email on the left, you might have an idea which company that is. Let's not name it. And this email is the email on the left is a confirmation of my application, right? So it's been sent on the 25th of May. Then they emphasize in that email that the process will be about 30 days and they'll be in touch within 30 days. The email on the right is a rejection letter from that process, which is dated 27th of July. So definitely that was 30 days. Within 30 days. And now, if you're promising something, would be nice if you kept to the promise, right? This doesn't show good faith on the side of a company, so maybe avoid doing promises. But then again, if the company is swamped with applications, that is a real problem, because there are certain jobs, and if you look at LinkedIn on job postings on LinkedIn, you see often how many people applied to the job, and these numbers sometimes go with 3 digits, 4 digits. I mean, this is a workload that is completely not manageable for most companies to screen and review and deal with. And this is part of the problem, that people are just applying a lot. People are desperate. What's your take, Philip, on the length of a process versus desperation?
I've been through it all. I've when I joined a company where there was no internal recruitment team, and I took over, inherited, let's say, their recruitment, custom-made recruitment app, basically, in this sense. I was traumatized because they had thousands of records of candidates that received a lovely welcome automated email about the culture of the company, the process, what they can expect, and we'll soon get back to you. And I'm talking thousands over a period of a few years. And that's what I inherited. And for the next couple of months, I was closing them down. And there was some I just had to, okay, it's been too long. I'm not going to put my head out here. And I was just delete their records. And there were some in the last year. I was personally coming, good, strong candidates. I was coming back to them, explaining them personally in an email, apologizing and asking, whether they would like to reconsider, blah, blah, blah. So it was a traumatic experience for me. And that's when I said, right, automation has to be used well. And we as recruiters also have to take full responsibility of this correct approach. Again, treat people the same way you would want to be treated. A simple philosophy is for every recruiter. It's not always possible. Things happen. Changes happen. The level of rotation in recruitment teams is high as well. So you often end up inheriting a mess from a recruiter who's left, for instance, right? So there's a lot of processes happening simultaneously, hundreds a week, some thousands if they're doing volume recruitment. So you've got to bear that in mind. There's a human behind it. It's not fully automated. Not everything is automated. Just be aware of that. However, this is a typical ATS generated automation email, both of them. And I'm very familiar with them. And I relate, and I've got to admit I've sent such messages after such a period of time as well, and it's not something I feel proud of. I have sleepless nights over it, and what I do now is to avoid being in such situations and get back. The sooner you can break bad news, the better. And one thing I've just got to say on a positive note, yeah, it's been what, a few months, so but they did give you closure, right?
Well, they gave me closure after I signed with a different company already, so I didn't need that closure anymore. But
Oh,
yeah,
well.
well, at least there was closure. There's
But
plenty
the
of
thing is
processes
here,
on my
look
list.
how this experience of yours affects their brand in general, right? It's not giving you a good feeling of the brand in its entirety, right? All
No,
caused by one individual. You have no personal name, who to contact, if anything. So this is what's missing, is some opportunity to connect with someone responsible for this application, a name, an email, if anything, you can follow up, right? Now,
yeah.
this is a common thing, and this is a common thing for volume hiring for companies with well-recognized brands who get hundreds, if not thousands, of applications for each position.
I mean, more than 50% of the job postings I saw on LinkedIn while I was searching for a job did not have anybody assigned to that job posting. They were anonymous. Uh, then some of the job postings actually had a recruiter,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the job postings due to LinkedIn showed me a list of people in my network that actually are somewhat related to that company,
Yep.
which is somewhat helpful in terms of networking and sourcing information about the company, the culture, etc., just to get a feel about the company you're applying to. And this is, I think, a very important note here. In the recruitment process, it's not only you that needs to sell towards your recruiting interviewer, recruiter, and the company. It's also the company selling themselves to you. So it goes both ways. While it feels often that, well, we don't have a candidate market at the moment, we have more of a company market because there's a lot of talent on the market at this point. But in general, this should work both ways. So it's not only them interviewing you as a candidate, it's also you interviewing them as a company. So it's fair and okay to ask questions and vet the company, even by vetting that company through other employees. Or, for example, by researching former employees of that company and just simply asking, hey, why did you leave that company? Especially if they left recently. So there's a lot of things going on. Companies on the outside often seem fantastic, right? They seem that like they have a great culture and whatnot. There are certain red flags people might want to look out for, like statements, "We are a family." I think that statement in general
I think
triggers
that's
me
dying out, thank God. But
heavily.
yeah,
But
that's
it's
dying
still
out.
it still happens in conversations and interviews. I had that
Really?
stated a few times.
So, but you didn't join that
Ooh.
family then? You didn't join that
No, no,
family?
no, absolutely not. No. If somebody says in a working relationship, in a contractual, transactional relationship, that we are a family, I mean, for me, that's a sign of abuse already, straight on. That it means that I'm gonna be working overtime without pay, or something like that. That I'm gonna be expected to take on a lot more than possible. So
Absolutely, no question about it. But I think culture is a whole different topic we can have a whole discussion about. There are
yeah,
certain things about cultural fit. Of course, we're talking the whole, let's say, the bullshit, the values. Very often you'll ask, managers, directors in a company, what are the values of the company? They won't have a clue. They won't have a
no,
clue because
yeah,
they've already forgotten, right? So, people come first, where people focus the company, and then you get sacked just, after a couple of weeks of working with them, right? So, I
yeah.
mean, the cultural thing is a very important aspect, but it's being able to define that culture and share it is key. Now, recruiters, coming back to this role of a recruiter, and before I talk about the recruiter as well, I'm gonna defend the recruiter being a very significant part of employer branding and of a company.
Yeah.
The reason is you've worked for a few big companies. You know how protective every company is about their brand, their marketing, the millions they put into positioning themselves
Yeah.
correctly, rebranding, or very, very particular. Now, all of that's beautiful and fun and great, and it looks beautiful on the outside, like some beautiful CVs I've seen as well, right? But then you come to a recruiter who's, let's say for this company you're sharing this slide, these examples of, big company, well-recognized brand, and look, with one interaction, they've ruined the whole brand reputation with one person. Imagine they have thousands of people applying, how this is growing on a local aspect for this company, right? So we recruiters really need to be aware of this. I've trained a few recruiters, from scratch, and it's always been this approach. This is a very important role. We are the first salespeople for very often for candidates who are exploring a new brand, right? So we are
Yeah.
also salespeople, but you have to have this no bullshit approach. If there's something about the culture you enjoy, share it. If there's something you don't like, feel free to share it as well. I mean, we're humans. People buy from humans too. I've learned this the hard way, is also to just speak freely, openly, and to be honest, it's the best thing you can do as a recruiter. I'm not talking about saying all the shit things that go on in the company, blah blah blah, but I'm just saying things, your observations of being here. So I've been here 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 1 year, 6 months, and this is what I enjoy most. This is the stuff that I'm still getting used to, trying to get make my way through these experiences. But that's my opinion, and I'm happy to share it with you. It's good because it's a human. Nothing is perfect. I always start let's say my pitches when I introduce myself to a new candidate. So I say, listen, I've been in this game too long. I'm not here to sell you a utopian image of a utopian company, right? Because we're far from one. We need more people to come and make it one, maybe. But that's the way I always start an introduction. I can see Kamil Murawski's here with us on the call. He knows it because he's heard this pitch of mine probably 100 times while sitting next to me for a few years in the office. So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's difficult sometimes to understand that presenting a company like an ideal place to work, a perfect employer, etc. There's no such thing as perfect. It's a ideal we want to strive to, the perfection, right? But it's impossible to have it perfect because there are different people. We have different values, and those different values will reflect within everybody working in a company, and they will not perfectly align with the company values. We can play along, but everybody will have some sort of a different value there, getting the culture or understanding the culture in a different way. And it's hard at times. If you look at those giant corporate environment or networked environment, because some of those companies are not corporate entities, but more of a network of various companies under one brand. And we've worked for one, not naming it specifically right now. These values get completely diluted between different companies within that network, or completely diluted across territorial boundaries. So if a company is in England, has the same set of values set in stone in writing, and the company in Poland, the interpretation of those values will be completely different at
Yeah,
times.
I mean that's going to be the challenge of any international business, right? It's also having this. You can't replicate the same culture that works wonderfully in one country, and replicate that exactly the same in another country and expect it's going to work. It's not.
Yeah, because
I've
we're in a
seen it
different
also many
context.
times, but it is about finding what is our common ground and what makes us tick. Now, culture also means, do you want to be part of the office buzz, the integrations? Very often now we're living in this remote work, especially in the IT world. Not really, not necessarily. The less the better for me. And that's fine. You just need to define it, right? So you're
Yeah,
setting expectations, and you're doing it as a recruiter, you're doing it between the hiring managers and the candidates too, right?
yeah, you're
Uh,
the mediator there.
yeah, you are, and you can get it wrong. You can create a typo and present someone in the wrong way, and straight away it's going to be a no, right? So recruiters have a lot of power in introducing and pushing your candidacy further into the world. It just takes a good recommendation from a recruiter. If they build a level of trust and reputation within the company, they'll listen to a good recruiter, and they'll say, okay, listen, Phil, CV says something else, but you're recommending this person. I want to meet the person. Yeah. So
as a big fan of Marvel movies, I'm going to be a little bit tacky, but I'm going to quote this anyways. With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Which is, everybody knows that comes from Spider-Man, but basically it's kind of the truth here, right? Because you're mediating between two parties with their specific needs, and you have the power to present somebody in a completely different light, or to see somebody for what they are, or what talent they are, what rough gem they are that can be made into something valuable for that company, right?
Listen, if you're a good recruiter and you've got a level of trust, you've worked your way hard to build relationships, and people know you deliver, right? Quality, or you understand the business, the skills needed. And there's no way I would call one of the hiring managers who's recruiting and say, listen, I don't have the CV, you got to meet this person. There's no way that he or she wouldn't meet that person. That's the level I'm talking about of really making an impact in the company. That's where you need to go as a recruiter. If you don't have that, well, then it's going to be the mundane, repetitive stuff. This is it, shortlisting, and then you send a shortlist of 12 CVs from 1,000 using ATSs, using all sorts of keyword searches just to pull out, hopefully the best ones. You've got no idea who you're hiring, what is an integration architect, who is an integration tester, and ServiceNow, that sounds like integration. Let's put it forward as well, right? That's the thing. I mean, and then of course the quality is going to be there's going to be shit, and the input is going to be the output is going to be the same as the input in this case.
Yeah, some people will go for numbers, other people will go for the relationships, right? And from my perspective, I respect a lot more people that go and build relationships, and I keep those relationships around, even though those recruiters that I worked with and I have a relationship with, they have no offers for me. Absolutely zero at this point, right?
Well, there you go. At least you got clarity where you stand, right?
Yeah, but I can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. If something pops up, tell me. I'll be happy to interview. And they're going to go the extra mile because we have a relationship standing there. They're going to go the extra mile, ask me for that CV so they're ready if anything pops up, and just notify me instantly, right? So that's a completely different way of working than just doing numbers and just sending out mass messages and then collecting CVs based on, well, somebody put that in a system.
Well, listen, that's the part of recruitment that can be easily automated, and AI is going to do a wonderful job at that. And then the good recruiters, the qualified recruiters, are going to do the good stuff, right? And really qualify the right candidates. There's some
Hopefully.
nice comments coming out through. I'm seeing.
A game between a company and a candidate, both trying to sell themselves. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Another one, from Shavak. Yeah, it's a common ground, and then build that long-term relationship to be able to be successful. Absolutely true.
And hype Shemek. Yeah, Shemek knows his shizzle. He's a man in the game. I think a recruiter is a middleman, right? You got to think, who's a middleman? Your agent, your estate agent is a middleman, right? So they're juggling, they're managing two sides of the process, the deal, or however you want to call it, right? So like with everything, it's going to be two sides of a coin. The good, the bad, and they have to kind of present it in the right way and hopefully make that connection. But
I kind of relate as an integrator because I'm always mediating between tech teams. So
you're a middleman as well, then.
Yeah, absolutely. Always been 14 years of my career as a middleman, but only negotiating between tech teams and systems. That's a different kind of negotiation, but that's basically the same kind of position. All right, let's have some more examples. These one are sent by Stefan, who's present here with us in the chat. So again, bad recruitment vetting, a recruiter proposing a job in Detroit or in Phoenix, Arizona, where somebody is based in Europe, which is a
Come on,
complete miss.
Stefan, you could do that. Come on. Hybrid. Was it once a week in the office? Come on, you could have done that.
Yeah, definitely. And then another great example of ghosting and mass messaging where nobody ever replied is like, look at this, it's August 12th, 24, 4:42 p.m. And Stefan replied 6 minutes later. Is it 6 minutes? Yeah, it's 6 minutes. No response whatsoever in the next few days. That's just horrendous in that sense. Another few examples being, yeah, just long conversations about unclear expectations. I mean, yeah, not enough project details, not enough description to get the candidate even interested. Very poor description of the job posting. I mean, I've seen job postings over the last 3 months that literally contained 10 sentences, and that was it. And I was like, how is anybody supposed to get interested in that job posting when, I mean, how? Why?
I don't know. What is it? Information overload. Maybe that's their hack. They want to be succinct and precise, maybe.
Or maybe they just want to get people hooked on the part that there's not enough information, so they need to ask.
You know, there's plenty of things here to consider. The good thing, you know, I'll say is they're attracting the right talent. There's a lot of, first of all, Stefan, you know, I've had the pleasure to meet Stefan, and a fantastic, very talented guy in the integration space. Remember, we were considering him for a role as a MuleSoft architect, which probably might not be the best fit, but what I really enjoyed that Stefan and I, we got on a call, we had an honest chat, and you know, I broke the news to him shortly after that. I'm sorry, but you know, it's not going to work out, or I can't remember the details. I'm sure Stefan maybe has something you can share that. But the cool thing about it is, what, you know, made a new connection with Stefan, and you know, I introduced Stefan to you. And
Yeah.
it's so nice that you guys are connected. And, you know, I already saw today that, you know, you're sharing Stefan's examples, and like, oh my goodness, I remember I introduced him to you. So it's like, it's so cool. So that's the real thing of, so if I ever come across, you know, a requirement for someone in Stefan's neck of the woods, I know I'm going to reach out to him, even if he's not looking. I'll ask him, who do you know? Because he's got a network of talented guys in his network. Same as
Obviously.
you know, I'm not an expert
Yeah.
in hiring integration specialists. So, you know, I'll reach out and get some support from you guys. And that's the wonder of, you know, really utilizing LinkedIn to its best. And I'm also now LinkedIn doesn't offer it, but it offered instant video calls. It was too expensive, I think, and it just wasn't utilized properly. So they've gone away from it. But I really love that, because I've got this, you know, as I
No,
say, I
they're still
practice all the
there.
time.
I just opened the chat with you on
Is
LinkedIn,
it?
and there's still an option to have an instant video call there.
Oh, there you go. So I recently tried and I couldn't find it. And okay, great. So it's good to know.
Top
So
right corner of the window.
there you go. Every day's a school day. But if you can, you know, if you can ask something, clarify something in less than 2 minutes, why not just pick up the phone or do an instant video call with the person? It's
Exactly.
just so much more. You'll get so much more information than you know, a thread on LinkedIn where you're bouncing off questions. How much are you offering? Well, I can't disclose that information, or I don't know, so I'm going to do the whole bullshit approach, you know, that how much are you looking for? And then, you know, you're going to have a ridiculous conversation. You can get on the video call, just be honest. Listen, I don't know what the rates are. You know, I'm trying to present, you know, a variety of very experienced candidates to my client. Yeah. So maybe if you could share your rates, you know, but even at the top end of what you're expecting, what would really motivate you to have a discussion with someone, and let me introduce that. You know, if you don't, if you do know the rates, then, you know, share something. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, why waste anyone's time? I mean, okay, you can't publicly announce it on job descriptions, but you can in a conversation. It's not like someone's going to record it and put it on YouTube and say, "Have you heard how much X company is paying? Watch my recorded video with someone." Well, they'll be in trouble if they do something like that. It'll get out quickly.
That's very true. But not to bash too much into recruiters. There are also awesome recruiters among us. And I'm just going to pop on the screen another one from, and this one is not anonymized because I'm praising the guy. If you see on the left side, this is a screenshot from my own personal profile. I basically put something there that has no purpose other than just to troll people or check if people actually read profiles. So I put a patent in. I hold no patents, just to be clear. This patent is just for the lols. I did it as a joke, and it worked amazingly as that joke. If you ever go to my profile and see that patent, click the See Patent button. It basically leads to a YouTube video of Sheldon Cooper in the ball pit, just diving in, popping up, and screaming "Bazinga!" And basically I wrote, well, if you read this place in the profile, please write "Bazinga" in your first message to me. There you go. We have a recruiter who actually wrote "Bazinga" to me. And he's not the only one. But to be honest, I can count those recruiters on the fingers of my one hand. It is a very, very rare occurrence that a recruiter actually goes through the whole profile. But if somebody does something like that and pops the message like that in my inbox on
you
LinkedIn,
will meet them, you will chat with them, you'll respect them from the moment they drop that message.
Oh, yeah.
Even if you're not looking, right? You kind of want to, and it's a brilliant example. But I mean, it's a tough one you're presenting. I remember when you shared this to me, and I was like, oh man, he's one of those. Then looking to But I think that's when you're in the situation where you're stable, you're secure, you're okay. You get a lot of messages because you're an expert in the field, so you get a lot of these cold call messages. So it's a way to filter, and it's a clever way to do it. And I absolutely love this creativity, this approach. Keep it on. But when you are looking for work and you're feeling the pressure,
oh yeah,
keep it, of course. But you'll just get a real positive surprise if someone reaches out and utilizes that since they're really keen on you. But just be a little bit more open to
I mean, if you're up against the wall, I'm not gonna discard a recruiter because he didn't wrote "Bazinga" to my in the message, right?
Yeah, but it'll be a different level if they do, right? For you,
it will be a completely different level of a conversation. I'll definitely more engaged in the conversation if somebody writes "Bazinga" in a message to me, even if that is not a match. I'll be even inclined to help that recruiter to find other candidates. As in, well, you know what? I'm not a match for this role, but I think I might have some people in my network that might be a match. So let me put those profiles in for you, and you go and ask them. But if somebody wouldn't do that, I would be not as inclined to have a conversation. But
Absolutely.
This shows empathy, and this shows this, the effort put into looking into a candidate.
The effort. Someone spent time crafting that for you. And I mean, look at the message alone. It's beautiful too. So it really, there's a nice hook. It's interesting. It's
I mean, it clearly
curious.
shows that somebody read the message, because if they're mentioning coffee in a message to me, they definitely read another statement in my profile, which is in the list of certificates that I hold, because I do hold a certificate for a barista certificate, which I actually own. I actually did a barista course. I actually ended that course with a certificate. I have a certificate, which is another funny thing, which we'll dive into with Boolean searches. But if he did the job, he did the effort, he did put in the effort to look through my profile. So there are people who actually care and actually will put the effort in. But that also means that you have to actually put the effort in as a candidate to get that profile squeaky clean and informative, right?
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
Hide a few Easter eggs for the sake of fun. Figure out what's yours
and
just
emoji
put it there
before your first name. There's a couple of really nice, interesting, examples you're sharing, and
but
cool
this
ideas.
can show that effort, and I respect these kind of people a lot more than any other recruiter out there. I mean, I used back a few years. I used to bash recruiters for shitty messages. Now I just don't care anymore that much because I'm a different person. But there's a lot of spammers there that don't care. They just
Well,
simply spam.
the conversion rates on LinkedIn, the average rate is around 10%. So think
Oof.
of it: if you're sending 1,000 messages out, you might get 100 response, and a conversion, it also includes a rejection, because that's kind of a message that, okay, the person's not interested. So a lot of people are playing the numbers game, so they will not really go into detail into reading your profile. They are very reliable on their Boolean searches, the technology they're using, and if you're doing mass recruitment, then these are cool things to be aware of. But yeah, you as a candidate, you also need to be able to filter what kind of recruiter you're working with. And I think we also talked about this before we went live, is that as a candidate, you also need to define what kind of recruiter am I talking to. Is this a in-house recruiter, or is this an agency recruiter? Is this a
Right.
recruiter representing another company, outsourcing company that's managing a project for another company? Who is it? Because if you first understand who you're talking to, then you can start thinking, okay, this recruiter's task as an agency recruiter is to select the best CVs, the best candidates, probably present 3 or 4 CVs to a customer for a specific role, and then they're waiting. They're waiting the game as well, unless they have a very
True.
strong relationship. So there's a lot of things you just need to be aware. In-house should be a lot swifter, but they're going to be dependent on hiring managers. So the longer it
Yeah.
takes, the more you're going to wonder how well streamlined these teams are internally, right? But there's a lot of things you got to take into account. But the first thing you should do is definitely define what kind of recruiter you're talking to.
Yeah. All right. So ending this section about candidates, let's jump into some advice. We already touched upon a few tricks that here and there, hacks to just see what kind of recruiter we're dealing with in terms of are they using automation, are they actually reading the profile, etc. Right? But this is not all. There's a lot more to it in terms of building a proper LinkedIn profile, and then by that also a CV, because LinkedIn is now more of a CV than a PDF you can send out. What kind of advice from a perspective of a recruiter, from a perspective that does of a person that does the sourcing of candidates, would you give to people in terms of their LinkedIn profiles, and then by proxy also somewhat the CVs? What changes do they need to be searchable, to be appealing to employers or recruiters, and how to deal with that?
Okay, and I guess ATS is coming here as well, right?
Sure.
Too, right? So I mean, okay, first of all, LinkedIn. I think in the world of IT, it's a must. The thing about LinkedIn, to really utilize the most out of your LinkedIn, there's one sad thing, and that is you have to be consistent. You have to be there regularly, and be active. You not necessarily have to be a content creator, but interact, engage. That also puts you higher on the algo, when it comes to searches. But most importantly, your header, your about section is where you whack in all the keywords that you want to be recognized in as a specialist in a particular area. And then of course you can elaborate further in every job description by sharing a little bit more skills in specific technologies, skills, experiences, successes, achievements, because it is a search engine optimization engine behind it when you look at it from a recruiter point of view. LinkedIn has a variety of different products for recruiters. You have to also be
Mm-hmm.
aware of that. So you've got some light recruiter light, you've got some more advanced recruiter products, but then you got the mammoth, which is the corporate recruitment account, which gives you the full access to all the different tools. Now, the first thing you can do just to really open up is be open to work. Now, whether you want to have the badge on your photo, that's a separate discussion. But
Right.
open to work, specify what work you're looking for, and the more elaborate you are on it, the more you open up, the more you'll be searchable. But that's discreetly hidden away only for recruiters who have the license to see that. I mean, I'd love to show you what the recruiter corporate account looks like. Maybe I can show you some screenshots. Maybe later we can have a chat again, maybe from the recruiter side, how we search, and I could do a live search or something. But we see as recruiters in the panel when we're doing a filter for a specific location, specific role, a Boolean search, all the keywords, all stuff like that. We then see options who is open to work, and I can have, let's say, 1,000 people in Poland looking for Salesforce developers in Poland, or 2,000 developers in Poland. Then I can see, I get a little button saying, well, there's 230 open to work. So for me, before I go really massively hard in the passive candidates, I might say, okay, if this is an urgent role, let's go and see who's open to work, and I can filter those who are declared themselves open to work. And some people forget to switch that button off once they've found a new job, or decided not to be looking. But it's rare. It's more often they are actively searching, and there's a lot of filters, a lot of information you get from that, and they're going to be more open to connect with you and discuss if you're approaching them with the right role. So that's another thing to be aware about. Be open to work. Whether you want to have the badge, well, that's a different story, right? But you can be discreetly open to work so that your employer doesn't see it either as well. So that's the design behind it.
I mean, I heard already about the badge that some people consider the badge a sign of desperation, and they don't want to talk to desperate people.
Look,
it's a perspective. It's not something that I would say it's a valid point of view. I think it's a damaging point of view for a lot of people, but that's one of the perspectives I've seen while discussing these topics with others.
Look, I get why people use it, and it's fine if you do. But if you think slapping the green banner, on your photo is going to change your life, and suddenly recruiters are going to pour into your inbox, think again, right? The algorithm isn't your friend on LinkedIn. Your network is. Be visible, be specific, and show up with value. Update your LinkedIn. If you haven't updated for 10 years, and well, don't be surprised you're not getting any engagement, right? I've hired candidates who've never used it, right? I like the open to work thing. I've hired them, I've connected with them, and I've passed on candidates who wore it like a badge of honor, in a way, right? But they just had no direction. Their profiles were unclear. Am I going to waste my time speaking to someone I'm not sure about? No. I value my time as well, right? So
sure,
this is a personal decision to make. And as I say, people may think it's desperate and everything. I don't see that as desperate. I say straight away, oh, great, I can engage if it's the right person with the right skills, right? But I totally get it. I would think about it myself. I've often been in a situation where, shit, maybe I should start looking for work. What am I going to do? I probably would go loud if I'm looking for work. I would go loud with everything, turn everything on for the start, make sure the message gets out to as many people as possible that I'm looking for work. And I would be very, very dependent on my network to help me out. And I would be assured that I would, follow up on every single person I've worked with in the past, see if they can help me out. Now, the networking aspect on LinkedIn is key. If you just turn on your badge that you're looking for work, and now you're going to sit back and wait for the recruiters to come in, you're living a dream. That's unless maybe some very unique CTA in a very particular area, right?
Because this is putting that open to work is not the only thing that will make you searchable, right? Because it's the somewhere in the second, third step of a search of sourcing the candidate when you look at open to work. The first thing is that you have to have your profile pop up in the search. So that means that you need to have keywords in your profile that would align with the job you want in that.
And ideally more than 3. I think the minimum is 3, but ideally more than 5, really, with specific skills, specific technologies and areas. So it's just it's a keyword search engine approach, and on LinkedIn, recommendations has a huge value in terms of positioning you as well in search. So I think the minimum was 7 recommendations that really position you higher.
Oh, that's interesting. That I didn't know.
Yep. Yep. So
So,
that's the algorithm on LinkedIn, because it sees you as a valuable contributor or a valuable asset for many who've recommended you, right? So
oh, does it matter when those recommendations were given?
that I can't answer you. I would say there's a few fantastic LinkedIn researchers who probably could answer that, but I would say, it's good to, I'm a fan of collecting testimonials, references constantly, because
Hmm.
people often ask me, Phil, when's the best time to ask for referrals? Well, the worst time is when you're leaving, yeah, or when you're
Mm.
planning to look for a job, right, quietly, because it's sending signals that you're looking, right. Say you're at work, you're enjoying your job, you're not thinking about looking for work. Say you can ask your customer, hey, I really enjoyed this experience. It's come to an end. Would you be kind enough to write a recommendation?
Yeah.
Even better, you write them one, and then ask them to write you one if they don't do it automatically.
Mm.
Give us gain, right? So you give and then expect something back. But yeah, very, very important thing. I really spend a lot of time when viewing profiles, like specifically, I do spend a time on references and their testimonials on LinkedIn. The more recent, of course, the better.
Hmm.
If they are a few or 10 years old, then it's not going to be that relevant. I'm not going to probably read them either. So yeah, and when you see people with tens or dozens of recommendations, it also makes you wonder.
Now you made me question myself. How many do I have on my profile? I'm about to check, but
Check, and whilst you're at it, do one thing too. What I check too, and that's
mm,
one thing is having testimonials on your LinkedIn. The other thing, I can see how many you gave. And for me, if you've got a balancing act, that's also a good sign about you as a person. But that's
mm,
just me being a little bit maybe psycho.
right.
But
That's
I
that's
like
not a good, that's not a 1-to-1 ratio though. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. That's something to fix then. To give out more recommendations to various people on stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd
That's
say definitely your header. Your header is an important element of your LinkedIn, because your header is actually searchable also on Google.
Hmm.
Uh,
Oh.
yeah, so if you put in, there was a time, I don't know if it still works, but in Google, if you put in, let's say, best Salesforce recruiter in Poland, I was so proud that I would be in the top 10, on searches on there'll be
So
companies, partners, and then suddenly a LinkedIn profile of me. I don't know. Probably it's not the same game at the moment, but
okay. So I'll pop my profile on screen then.
yep.
So looking at my profile, the header, you mean this particular part?
Yes, that one.
Mm.
That's searchable, and of course the keyword section in your about section is also
Hmm.
very important. It's your space. A few years back, LinkedIn increased the number of of words and letters you can add to that about section.
Okay.
It's your elevator pitch, right? It's your who are you, and refresh it, read it through sometimes.
All right.
If you're looking for work, ask your closest ones. When you read this, is it me? Is there something missing? Because it's really tough. I mean, I know I've seen tens of thousands of CVs in my lifetime,
Hmm.
or probably more, right? To be honest with you, I have the shittiest CV ever. Whenever anyone would ask me for my CV, I was like, oh, could a PDF version of my LinkedIn not be enough? I really avoid, and that's the thing. It's like shoemakers wears no shoes, right? So the Polish, I think, expression, the
Yeah.
idiom. And that goes with many very talented people out there. They're great at what they do. They might be shit at writing CVs, and they're the ones who miss out big time in the massive corporate ATS systems, right?
That's true.
Which is another world of hacking.
And another piece of advice that I learned thanks to Gabby, she's
Yeah.
unfortunately didn't join us today because of her condition. We'll double back and have another session with her somewhere in October or November. We'll see to that. Um, but one thing that I learned through her posts on LinkedIn, because she's very vocal about Boolean searches and how people actually do not understand how to use Boolean searches, is that a lot of recruiters actually tick the option that they're searching for somebody that has a current role and then the keywords for that particular role. Now, if you became unemployed and you're searching for a job, and on LinkedIn you update your last position as no longer current, you're basically become unsearchable.
Yep. Yep, that's a great example, and you're absolutely right. A lot of recruiters do that via current location, current position, even current companies or previous companies. So there's a lot of filters you can add to a search, right, and to a Boolean search, and yeah, it's absolutely spot on. Yeah, and that's something to be aware of. So if you are unemployed, maybe the saying of actually sharing that since, let's say you're unemployed since June or May, and you might say, so since June, or actually since May, I'm actively searching for jobs in this space, or an enterprise integration architect looking for his next gig as a title, right? Or something like that. Maybe that's a solution. That's also, you got to be creative about it. And
Okay.
yeah, it's
So
really
that,
cool.
that's
Gabby
in
is
that
the
sense,
queen of Boolean, no question about it. And yeah, she shares some fantastic tips. And
that's true. But that means that there are two ways about it. So either you don't put your previous employment as ended on LinkedIn and just keep it as present, current.
yeah, that's another option.
Or put your dream job as your current employment. So create a new record for the time you're unemployed and looking for a job. And that might work as well, because then you put exactly those keywords that you want to get. But then again,
Opens
in
up
IT,
to bias, right?
yeah, that's up to bias, because in IT, well, from a perspective of a developer, it's a little bit easier because you're a developer. You put in the tech you're working in, the tech stack, the languages, the frameworks, whatever that may be. But if you're an architect, there's so many different architect titles, and they are never cohesive between different companies. They just are named differently. My perception of myself, I am an integration architect, right? Because that's my technical specialization, my technical niche. But I've been called a staff engineer, a principal engineer, a solutions architect, an enterprise architect,
A family member.
Family member, yeah, precisely. I'm curious to our viewers, our listeners here. Maybe you guys can comment on all the different names that you had over your careers that you perceived as yours, how you would name yourself, and how the companies actually perceived you, and what titles did they give you. So just to be frank, on my current employment contract, it's just stated software engineer. It's a very generic contract in that sense. So a standardized contract. So they don't put a specific role, because the scope of responsibilities is discussed further down the line, not within that particular.
Yeah, but Carol, you can change the job title on LinkedIn to make it relevant to what you specialize in. The fact that you're contractually, assigned as a software engineer doesn't, and I've had so many conversations with people around this, like, should I really? I mean, oh my God, my contract, it says I'm a software engineer, but I said, yeah, so, but you're a Salesforce developer, right? Yeah, so just whack it in as a Salesforce developer.
Who cares about what's on the contract?
It's your profile, your
exactly.
CV. No one will take you to court for your CV. They will take you to court if you lied on your CV about certain experience or education, and you require that for practicing whatever you do. But apart from that, CV is not a legally binding document, or your LinkedIn profile. It's your public space to promote yourself, to share and connect.
It's your business card, basically.
It's a business card, yeah, your digital business card. And let's not beat around the bush. It's the number one place to be looking for work in our sector in IT. But it's also a fantastic platform for connecting with people, for finding business, for selling services, and for building relationships and finding valuable content in your niche if you use it well.
A curious question then. How often do you find that people actually lie on their CVs and LinkedIn profiles?
You know what? I used to do that. I used to spend a lot of time comparing someone's CVs to LinkedIn and pick out all the little mistakes, that, oh, you said you ended in June this year, but on your LinkedIn it says differently. But honestly, I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn anymore. For me, it's all around competencies and skills. Actually, when I refer people, CV is, let's say, an element. It's not always an element. You know, I've got a lot of hiring managers I work with say, Phil, do we need CVs? Saying, no, absolutely. I'm more than happy not to. It's just a LinkedIn profile if they've got one. If not, like a trailhead profile. In some cases, in my case with Salesforce, it's a popular thing to have to validate certifications and accreditations and stuff. And just, you know, my experience, my notes shared after speaking and introducing myself. And the focus is definitely, of course, on the skill set. And nowadays, even more than ever, is specific product knowledge and stuff. But it's the soft skills, the approach, depending on the role and, you know, the challenge that this person will face in this project. Because very often we're now hiring for utilization and not hiring for competencies, just competencies, right?
Right. Now, given skill sets, because I remember from our conversations when I was actually looking for a job, how to best show your skills. Because as far as I recall from our conversation, recruiters are not able to search through certificates on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So you cannot confirm by Boolean search to find those people that have a specific Salesforce certificate or ISTQB or, I don't know, Scrum org certificate or whatever else that is required for the job. Which basically means that while that section is there, for sourcing, it's useless. For further discussion and reviewing the profile might prove useful, but first you need to pop up in the search. So if we're searching for specific competencies confirmed by a certificate, how to best show those in your profile?
Yeah, so the About section is a great place to update your accreditations if they are, let's say, popular and relevant in your industry. So as an example of Salesforce, you know, it's very often in people's headers, they'll say 15 times certified Salesforce recruiter, Salesforce developer or consultant, right? But in the About section, they can specify exactly which ones. Or, of course, you know, in my world, because it's a niche market, Salesforce, I use LinkedIn as often as I use Trailblazer, right? So Trailhead, sorry. So I jump straight to Trailhead and I'll find them on Trailhead if they have a public profile. And on top of that, I've discovered some wicked tools that scrape Trailhead, and I can search people via certifications in specific geographic locations. So yeah, some cool stuff out there.
Okay, so for those people who are not in the Salesforce ecosystem, the Trailheads is a place where there's a lot of self-paced training for Salesforce topics, Salesforce products, including also MuleSoft for the integration space. This is also where you keep your certificates assigned to your account. And if you would look at it in a more generic way, this is basically a little bit like a equivalent of Credly. Credly issuing the badges, and you have a profile on Credly where you store all your badges and certificates you get from various sources. I myself, well, I do have a Trailblazer account, but I'm not that tied to the Salesforce ecosystem, so I do have some certificates there. But a lot of my certificates are basically badges on Credly from companies like O'Reilly, Solus, some more. I even issue badges like Credly through Bridging the Gap. We utilize Open Badges 3.0, and currently my partner in crime, Radek, is working on getting those badges online on our site so that those badges that we already issued are available there and can be imported to such a profile. So this is like the Trailblazers is the equivalent of these kind of licenses, badges issued publicly that are verifiable by the issuer, with the issuer through sites like Credly.
Very, very specific for the Salesforce ecosystem. And the cool thing about it is also, if I can't get hold of someone on LinkedIn, I can approach them. If I find them, I usually will. If I find them on Trailhead, I can directly send them a message via that platform as well. So I know it will go into their valid email inbox. They'll get immediately a notification that I'm in touch with them. So I give
that
myself
makes your life easier.
It does sometimes. If I'm desperate to get hold of one particular person, then I'll try different angles, and it can be very fruitful sometimes. But again, if they don't want to speak to me, they're not going to speak to me. So I also live with that.
All right. Okay, Philip, as a recruiter, the mediator between parties, between the candidates and the hiring managers, the companies, can you shed some light and let's humanize a little bit the role of a recruiter? Because all of us are only human. We make mistakes, we have our quirks, we have our problems, and that always shows in our work. We were already distinguishing the in-house recruiter and the agency recruiter, and then a distinction on niche recruiter versus corporate mass recruiter, right? So, can you talk tell us more about these kind of distinctions, because these are two separate axes, let's say, right? Agency, in-house versus mass or niche. You're obviously right now in a niche. You're, as far as I know, you're also working both as agency and in-house at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tell us how that looks like, because that will give some people most likely a little bit more light into how to work with recruiters or what to expect from recruiters, and how to chat with them. What would be the process and
Well,
differences?
I validate recruiters myself. I do that. I wouldn't say for fun, but it's also, you got to see your competition, right? You got to measure yourself up sometimes, and it's a good exercise for candidates as well. Is when you need to validate the recruiters that are reaching out to you. If they've got an interesting offer, you want to kind of prepare. Then I'd definitely say look into, first of all, are they in-house? Or are they working for an agency? Or is it a big corporate, let's say outsourcing company? Those are probably most likely looking for talent for a specific project. But one is just be aware of that. Knowledge is power here. That straight away you
Mhm.
can kind of set certain expectations, etc. Two is I look at their profiles as well, and I look at their activity first. So
Mm.
are they active? And if so, what kind of activity do they share? Is it just job vacancies? Oh, I'm hiring this, I'm hiring this, I'm hiring this. And then you can, see a pattern. Are they hiring for specific areas, or are they doing a lot of different things, right? Then you can also start painting a picture. Is this a specialist in a particular area that I focus on? Or am I going
Mhm.
to be speaking to a generic recruiter? So that also sets you up to prepare for the call. So if it's a generic recruiter, then you need to be a little bit more, stop using that jargon that everyone's used to, let's say in your area of expertise, and numb it down a little bit, so that you can, I mean, it's not easy actually. One of my favorite things is, I think it was Einstein who came up with it, right? So it's like, if you can't explain what you do to a 6-year-old, you don't know what you're doing yourself, right? So it's the
I
kind
love
of
it.
same thing. It's the kind of same story, right? So be aware who you're addressing your, let's say, your pitch, or who you're introducing yourselves to, even if
Yeah,
they're the one reaching out. Yeah.
adjust the language to your audience, basically,
Yeah,
which
absolutely. Be
is
aware of, exactly. You've got to be conscious in here, because if you go in talking too much jargon, they're not going to be able to take the notes because they don't have a clue what you're talking about, right? And I mean, maybe in the era now of AI, which is taking notes and stuff, that might be a little bit more helpful for them. But uh, at the end of the day, just calmly, take your time, explain certain things, in a way that is clear for them, and at the same time they'll appreciate it, because you'll make their work a lot easier. You can even do something like, say, listen, I put down a little summary of my skills, my expertise, real my strengths with some achievements. Would you want me to email that to you? And, oh my god, they was like, oh,
oh.
that's gold dust. That's gold dust. They'll love it. So these little things are really cool to have as well. So let's say your CV is one thing, but also, let's say, a list of real achievements, super projects where you had a big impact on. If you break that down, I mean, first of all, if you're looking for a job, this is one of the first things you should be doing. It's really finding key projects where you're really proud of, because in interview scenarios, you're going to be asked about these examples, right?
Mhm.
So you need to also be able to visualize it, see it. So it's good if you write it down, bullet point, brief, what technologies, in case of IT, what are the challenges, how do you overcome it, make it a little bit quantifiable if you can. So how many months, or, if you're responsible for a budget, then, what kind of budget we're talking about, percentages, it's all gold dust. And, of course, for a recruiter, this is going to be very helpful information.
Yeah, that's something they can work with to showcase you better. Uh,
Absolutely. You need to help them help you.
it's parallel to the work of an architect. An architect always has to adjust the language to the audience, because we have all sorts of audience. I'm
Yep,
talking to a dev
exactly.
team. I'm going to be talking jargon. I'm talking to my manager or a tech group of tech managers. That's going
You'll
to
be
be.
talking bullshit.
I'm going to be talking. Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking to a board of directors, and I'm going to do the mushroom
Yes.
talk, right? So that's going to be
Yes.
completely different. This is a running joke in some with some of my friends. It's like when we see really bad management, we were joking that a good director is like a mushroom kept in the dark in a basement and fed with crap. So you're gonna be talking mushroom, right? It depends. And so is with recruiters in that sense, because recruiters most of the times are not techies. They don't know the lingo. They don't know the jargon, right? They work with that jargon because they need to compose the job posting quite often. Sometimes they just get that job posting from the hiring manager or the company, but that job posting might have a lot of mistakes in it, and they will not catch that because they're not techies, right?
I mean, that's a very key point you just mentioned there, and you're absolutely right. The real good recruiters have the foundational knowledge of the technology, let's say they're specifically hiring for, and that's enough for them to understand what works with what's necessary, how are things integrated in your case, right? What kind of apps are we talking about, right? Technologies used, which sort of frameworks. It's the foundational stuff. I'm not saying you have to go into a sophisticated technical conversation with a candidate. If you can, then bloody hell, you're at a different level, right? And I'd say for anyone out there struggling to find a job in the tech world as a specialist, and maybe you want to consider being a specialist recruiter in that space, because you could make a fantastic living as well. So if you've got the skills and you like it, then you want to be busy and you want to utilize the skills, and it's great.
I mean, I worked with recruiters before when they were hiring for the teams I was working with. Quite often, I was like seeing very bad job descriptions, and I was like reaching out directly to the recruiters I was working with within the company, and I said, "Hey, let's talk about this. I get that you don't have the context and you don't know tech precisely. Let's fix your job posting so that it actually says what it's supposed to say." Instead of what it says right now, because you will not catch any fish on that. That's a very wrong hook there. But this is a general comment on most people. The people don't like to be pointed out that they have mistakes somewhere. That's one thing. Second thing, a lot of people just don't care and don't want to learn. So you should value those that actually will ask for this kind of feedback and ask for help composing that job posting better, or explain to the customer that they're working with as recruiters, to the hiring manager or the company, that hey, you're not looking for a single person, you're looking for a whole IT department.
Oh yeah, that's I recently posted about that. I had an interaction with a customer looking to use my services as an agency, and they went into describing in full who they're looking for, and my response was very bluntly put, you're not looking for, I can't remember, it's a solution architect. I think you're looking for a team.
I even have that post right here. So if we zoom in a little, do you know someone who's an admin but also codes and also designs architecture and has a client-facing experience? Yeah. They're basically
or otherwise they're called a unicorn, right? And I think every recruiter is looking for unicorns. But I think as a recruiter, if you are in an agency recruitment and you're working with customers who are urgently looking usually for talent, let's put it that way, that's when they will start using agencies, right?
Right.
Specialist agencies, especially. So you need to also be a bit of a counselor to them and explain what the market is looking like if you're an expert in a particular field, and you need to also educate them on certain things, because I'm not just talking salaries, and it's like, if your expectations are up here, then you got to work on something. Your salary offer is going to have to be double than what you're thinking. If that's the case, then yeah, we might be able to get you this unicorn, but be ready, it's not going to cost you 4,000 euros a month, right? And then it's really, sometimes you can break it down. There's so many times I've managed to get one job turned into two, which is brilliant, and it worked out brilliant. And the budget, had to be increased a little bit, but it's a total different game. If you can really get in the head of the hiring manager and understand their challenge they're facing. They've been struggling to hire someone for 4 months. Well, there's something wrong there, right? What could it be? So it's not easy, because as a recruiter, you want to get that business, you want to help them, you want to have a happy customer, right? And at the same time, you must look after the candidates, because if you give
True.
them a poor experience and you sell them a job that's not real, and the expectations are going to be totally different, well, as a recruiter, you shouldn't be sleeping at night properly. You should have serious problems, because these are I see a recruiter is in between, very often, very important decision-making processes of people in their career, their life. You can fuck up your whole career by making a bad move into a wrong company. It really is that important. So you really need to listen to the candidates, understand their current situation, aspirations. If they're looking for a job, they want a steady job. What kind of job is it? What's really important to you, apart from the salary, the benefits, or whatever it is? What are you really looking for? No, listen, I've got this customer, this job, but it's missing this aspiration of yours, and I just want to be honest, right? I mean, because for me, the best thing about me, I very rarely do sales calls. The reason is for it, all the candidates do the sales for me, because they've had a good experience. They will want to move to another. They say, "Oh, Phil, I've been here. Time for me to move on." It's like, shit, man, of course. I'd love to introduce. So I'll start introducing different companies, and it's like that could happen every 2-3 years sometimes, right? So it's like,
right.
Return business. And the cool thing is, from a recruiter side, someone good leaves a company, whether that's through a recruiter like me or someone else, then a real clever thing, and I love it. I was taught that in London that this is called double whammy recruitment. I don't know why, but it
Double
makes
whammy.
sense. But double
Okay.
whammy, because someone's leaving, your candidate who you pulled out one happy job into another happy job. So, hey, listen, could you give me the details to your hiring manager, to your line manager and everything? And then you suddenly call up this line manager and say, hey, listen, I've been doing some recruitment in your area locally, specialize in this area. I was wondering, would you be interested in me introducing you to 3 vetted, I just finished a recruitment campaign somewhere. I say, oh, man, where did you come? Man, the timing is perfect. I just got a notice from one of my best employees. That's how you do it. That's a little trick here and there, right? So
Okay, I get it why that it's a double whammy.
there's a lot of mind games going on as well. But I mean, I'm not saying
That's a
it's
nifty trick.
always what we do, but it's always about timing. It's like with a good startup. You might have the money, you might have the people, you might have a fantastic product, but if the timing ain't right, it's not going to work, right? And the same
True.
goes, also with recruiting, I guess.
With recruitment, with placing in a job, joining the company at a specific time, yeah, these are all factors that are quite important, and they will be heavy on how somebody works
Yeah,
with
I
a
mean, I
company.
think there's every, there's another expression I use. It's like I do it for customers, but I also do it for candidates. I sometimes say, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince or princess, right? I mean, that's true, right? I mean, that's the whole learning process. You've got to treat everyone, however, with respect, and you never know, especially if you're in a niche market. The world is so small, you will come across that person, that individual, sooner or later somewhere, and you better want to have lasted an okay impression at least, right?
That's
Another
very
thing,
true.
and another thing I just wanted to maybe add. Sorry, I'm
Sure. Go ahead.
loading, throwing a lot of things in. So I recently also had a conversation, not necessarily with the customer directly, but with an account executive who's working with this customer, who mentioned they want to hire. And they want to hire, and they was like, oh, Phil, maybe it's a customer for you. And then I actually told them that no, it's not for me. And the reason for it was they have this approach to hiring that we're not certain about hiring, because I don't want to go through all the painstaking, the investment of hiring someone, and then I'm going to see them go in 6 months, 1 year. I'm terrified about that. So I've had loads of those conversations before, and it was always kind of Richard Branson come to my mind straight away, and his famous saying, right? So train your people to be the best at what they do,
So they can leave.
So they can leave, but value them and treat them the best way you can, so they
So they
don't,
don't want to
right?
stay.
So I mean, it's the same thing. It's a recruitment strategy you have. If you're set up to fail, then I'm not going to be a recruiter who wants to work with you. I don't want to be encouraging talent to come and join you. It's very simple. My business partner Łukasz, I've got this great banter with him all the time. But it's simple. When we have calls with some customers and we finish the call, the first thing we ask each other is, "Would you want to work for that customer?" I say, well, there are a few red flags, and say, yeah, well, look at it from the candidate perspective. There's some things I'm not sure about. We've let go of working with a big partner, potential partner from the US, just because we don't feel we're ready for them, and I don't feel, they're ready for us either. And, we just had to be brutally honest about it and break that news. And I hope, we'll be able to revisit the topic again later, but I need to make sure that I'm looking after my candidates and I've got their best interests in mind, because they will come back to me, they will promote me, they'll refer me, they might be hiring in a few years' time for another case, right? So it's a survival approach as well from a recruiter perspective.
Now, changing the topic a little bit, and then that's kind of going to be touching hiring managers and candidates at both at the same time. A very important topic in overall concerning culture, concerning the approach of hiring managers or setting up for failure, etc., is mental health in general, right? So a lot of people in IT nowadays are suffering from all sorts of ailments, burnout, being depressed, stressed out, and whatnot. IT, as a field in general, is a perfect field to hide neurodiversity. There's plenty of people that are neurodiverse, that have ADHD, that have ASD. They just don't know about it. But they show that when you talk to them, you kind of get a grip on that and see that they're like, oh, they're very specific. They might be like, for example, very rigid, very straight to the point, very fixed in seeing things. And this is on the both sides of your work, right? How would you deal? What advice would you give to people looking for a job, or hiring managers looking for candidates, when dealing with this neurodiversity, or dealing with candidates that are, well, very specific? Because neurodiversity makes us somewhat specific, makes us somewhat unique, gives us some amazing talents to work with, but at the same time, that comes with a cost that is usually the soft skill cost. And our education doesn't really support us in being better at soft skills, because that's not something that's taught in universities where we go to learn computer science. We're focusing on the hard stuff, not the soft skills, right? So what would be the advice from a perspective of a recruiter for both sides, how to deal with these soft skills, what to develop to be better at being a better candidate, to go further in the processes, and then for hiring managers to be better interviewers in those processes, to be mindful and empathetic in those processes? From your perspective, how would you go about that?
Well, it's a challenging, interesting question. Well, you got me thinking there when talking about it. I think it's an interesting experience I have quite often, is that hiring managers often mistake skills for traits. A good example of this is they say, "Oh, I'm looking for someone creative," and any recruiter might just say, "Okay, we're looking for someone creative." Yeah, great. Looks, and so many jobs I see: creative developer, creative, I don't know, accountant. You can have a Google about that, but yeah, but creativeness. So, okay, great. So I always say, if someone says creative, my first response is, so how are you going to assess that? You can ask them to bloody paint a picture, online when you're having a video call with them. Or something. I mean, these are traits, and traits, you kind of, this is where you get these maybe gut feelings, you get a feeling of the traits, and then soft skills. Well, soft skills, you're right. They're probably a lot harder to learn the older you become, right? Soft skills you develop through life experiences, right? However, you can learn to be presentable. You can learn to be communicative, and you can the best thing you can do before any interview is to be bloody prepared for one. You build your confidence, you'll feel more secure, and you'll do a better job. The more interviews you have, the better you'll become at interviewing, right? As well. So I would say, no matter your struggle, and yeah, I understand what you're talking about. And there's a variety of people with various, let's say, even phobias to having interviews. The nerves just rack them up, but then it's part of the game. It's part of the process.
Mhm.
I guess maybe you could declare that if you wanted to. No one should discriminate you around it, of course. But I'll just say, just do your shizzle. Interviewing is a sales pitch. It's a sales game, but be yourself. Don't pretend you're someone you're not. But the things you need to be ready for when job searching is be the best of who you are and be the best expert in the field you are and present it and do it confidently. Now, if you're terrified about video calling, or I think video calling is a lot easier to master than live interviews.
True.
First of all, there's so many things you can do, so many technologies you can utilize whilst on an interview, but it's the simple things you got to be aware of. It's just rehearse, position yourself. I mean, look at us. I mean, we've got kind of probably a good interview set. Maybe my monitor, reflecting in the window behind me isn't the best thing to have,
That's
but
true.
look, we've prepared ourselves in terms of the background, right? The lighting, the sound. This is the basic stuff you do. How many interviews I've been where I've had a guy call up to join an interview with a cigarette on the bench, and I know a lot of people would probably say, "Oh, fuck off! You're not ready. You're not professional. I'm not going to work with you." Well, actually, no. I said, "Hang on a sec. I'll connect in a moment." I went downstairs. I went to a bench, and I'm a smoker too, so I lit up a cigarette. We had a great conversation. I can't remember if I hired him or not, but it's that's absolutely fine. But I mean, of course, it's probably not the ideal interview scenario, and I'm probably a bit weird myself, so you can get away with a lot with me. But overall, professional and respectful is the best way to go forward. And if
Mhm.
you are nervous, if you've got certain limitations that you're aware of, I would say don't be afraid to admit to them. If it's really you can feel it's really putting pressure on your performance in an interview, admit to it. But you can,
Mm.
like say, I'm not the best in such social interactions. Okay, but you're applying for a sales job. Well, you're not going to go far in that interview, right? But then I'm not the best in social interactions, but I'm one hell of an integrator. I'd love to tell you more about the things I've made, the things I've created, the companies I've helped reshape the way they work. You got to have this element of this human interaction too. It's not robotic. I mean, if you want to go robotic, then maybe AI recruiters is going to be the future for such roles, right?
We have a very lovely comment from Stefan here. Everything we are discussing should be the norm, not an exception. I would agree, but unfortunately, it is not the norm, and that's the sad part of it. Mm,
I
but
think it's getting better
it is
with every year. It definitely is. And I've worked in big corporations. I've seen how much effort goes into improving the skills also of recruiters. It's not an easy job. And we also mentioned this, Carol, before we went live, was I've got the stereotype of recruiters sometimes, right? And that is very often, like in any job, you got people who don't love their job, right? They hate their
true.
job, right? The same goes with recruiters. We're only human beings. But I've registered, and I kind of see a pattern. I've seen many recruiters come and go. It's a hard grind, guys. I mean, I get often asked, Phil, how can you recruit so long? I mean, do you still love it? Even yesterday, someone was asked, do you really enjoy your job? And I have to admit, I still do. However, I'm really burnt out sometimes. I'm really like down to the ground. I've got no energy. I can't do this call, but I still do it, right? But there are many people, like in any profession, any job, that are doing it either for a reason, whether that's just to survive, have a paycheck, and at the same time simultaneously be looking for other opportunities. But very often in recruitment, it's an entry level opportunity to work in HR. There's a lot of aspiring HR professionals who can't find a way into HR directly. So recruitment is very often the case. And, you need to be well spoken, presentable, be good with processes, time management, and pretty much there you go. You can be a recruiter, right? So, but there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to it.
It's analogous to being a tester or a Salesforce consultant as a step towards being in IT, pretty much.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's a great comparison too. But I'm not, I think it's a pretty one. Anyway, if you've got a dream and you've got a dream career you want to get to, by all means, use any way, any approach you can to get in there. I've got no issues with that. But if you're a recruiter, respect your role. It's an important one. Look after the candidates. It's very simple philosophy. Like I always, from day one, my manager shared me from day one.
Mhm.
Treat every single candidate the same way you would want to be treated, Philip. Is it difficult? No, it's not.
Yeah.
Do I go to bed feeling guilt and suddenly shit? I was supposed to reply to him like 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
Literally yesterday, I had an interview with a candidate, and I overslept.
Oh.
I had it at 9 o'clock, and I woke up. It was my day off. 2 days ago, it was my day off, and I was doing some extra work. Right, so I overslept. No one's in the house. I overslept, and I woke up. I remember it was coming to 10 o'clock. I woke up. Doesn't happen to me often. Normally, my dogs wake me up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, right? But here, I woke up at 10, and I'm like, fuck. 9 o'clock, I had a scheduled interview, and first thing I'm on LinkedIn. Hey, man, I'm so sorry. I overslept. I'm not gonna lie, I'm human.
Be
And straight away
transparent.
it's like, hey, man, I totally get it. Don't listen, I can't do it now. Let's do it tomorrow. And we did it tomorrow. And apologizing again. He said, no, don't worry.
Yeah, but that's normal, decent behavior. Being transparent
It is,
about what happened.
it very rarely happens to me,
But still happens.
But I mean, it happens, right? We're only human.
But
Yeah,
you had the gut to admit that and write that message and say, hey, I overslept. Sorry for that.
Well, I'm very hopeful for this candidate in this process. So, it's for me, I don't want to be, pretending someone I'm not either, right? I want to build a good level of trust. It doesn't work out for this, let's say, process we're in. Maybe we can find another one, but yeah,
Okay.
It's just a human approach. I think it's just so important. And it goes with ghosting. It goes with all the other things that, are connected. If you hate your job, you're waiting till 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock, bang, you're out the door, you're in the elevator, you're back home. Fair enough, respect to you. But the world of recruitment, from my experience, very often the time to get hold of people is usually after working hours. If you really want to get a few diamonds, engaged, and it comes with a cost. And I'm sorry, that's the nature of this role, this work, and you've got to be available. You've got to be approachable. There's only so much you can do. Of course, I've stopped responding to messages from countries I'm not hiring in. I can't reply to everyone.
Right.
I used to be on a mission to reply to everyone, and I just said, come on, I've got a life, I've got a
Not
family.
manageable, really. Right.
Exactly.
But you mentioned maybe as a kind of a closing topic in the discussion, you mentioned come prepared, right? So how would you advise candidates to prepare for an interview? What is the preparation? What they should do to be prepared, other than brush their teeth and get clothes on when they wake up, right?
Yeah, I think you have to be prepared. The better prepared you are, the more confident you will be. And confidence is the first. I would say half of your success is confidence, not being overconfident and in your face, but confident, because it's one of those things you quickly get a feeling of. Am I going to connect with this person? And these are psychological kind of little hacks and everything, but definitely build confidence in the sense that be prepared. You'll feel a lot more confident. That's the first thing. I'm not going to go into breathing techniques and shit like that if you get stressful and stuff, but there's loads of little exercises you can do. Second is be prepared for specific questions. So I am a fan of behavioral type interview questions. So
Okay.
these are questions, and I think we've gone through this ages ago, right? And this is, your typical, tell me about a time when, or could you give me an example of when you integrated X with Y, or, or share me an example of failure in your career. So whatever it is, but it's asking for a specific example. Now, this is a very common interview question. It happens pretty much all the time. Maybe we don't
That's
even,
true.
we're not aware of it. But when you start being aware of it and you're picking it up, you know what to do straight away. Brilliant, very simple tactics. The STAR technique. So S, it helps you kind of build the story. So it is storytelling in a sense, right? In the basic sense of storytelling. So S, you set the scene. So when was it? Where was I? What role was I doing? In very simple form. Then T is for task. So my task was to do this, or the challenge I was facing was to do this, right? So you've got clear, storyline building up. Then A is for actions or action, and then you list 2 or 3, 4 specific actions that you took, not we as a company, we as
You
a
specifically.
team. It's your interview. It's not your bloody company's, your boss's interview, right? Or your team's. It's you.
Yeah.
What did I do? If you were a manager, then I delegated. I decided to take this path instead of, that. Whatever it is, right? So it's I. They say there's no team in I, but there actually is. There's that little. Oh, I'm probably against that. And then finally, one that very often managerial, senior managers forget about because it's for them so obvious. They've gone through, they've set the scene so the listener can follow. Because if you lose your listener at the very beginning, go straight into actions or straight into a problem, you've lost them. They're going to be looking at your CV, looking at your LinkedIn profile, trying to figure out where was this? What was he talking about?
What's the context?
The more specific, like a story. Once upon a time, behind, in a little beautiful country of, the more details you give, that person can visualize it, picture it. It's simple storytelling at the end of the day. So that beginning is so impactful. You've got their attention. If you lose their attention at the beginning, they're not going to listen. They're going to forget what you said. But then following the actions you took and what very often managers and senior management forget, is all the actions, and then they often finish, and it's like, oh, great, that's really. But where's the bloody result? So the result of my actions was XYZ, right? Or if it's talking about failure, when did you fail? What kind of result is that? Well, the result is, I don't know, learning. From that day on, I've never done this way. I've implemented this or that, right?
I think this is a very, very important note here. If you're describing your failure, you should not put in the results that are the negative results of that failure. You should put in what you gained from that, what it was the benefit, what was the plus sign.
Yeah, I mean,
of course you failed, so there was damage there, but highlight what you gained from that, how you grew as a specialist, right?
Yeah, and I think I'm a fan of different kind of interview techniques, but I mean, this is the most common one to be, especially if they're validating your experience and what they want to hear. They want to hear about your experience on projects, challenges you face, how you overcame them, and they're seeing how you're going to be a fit for us and our challenges and scope of the shit we deal here, right?
Yeah.
So and that's one. So the STAR technique is a simple exercise just to kind of, so now you think about, you look at the job description, you look at the keywords in the job description, or maybe you've had a brief chat with the recruiter, you got a little bit more information. Keywords, key areas of responsibility, key knowledge, key skills required to do the job effectively. And then you think of it, okay, they're going to be assessing me on this. So now let's do a little Excel spreadsheet or whatever, a little table, a little Kanban, whatever you want to do. Okay, so they're looking for this. So now let me find a good example I could use to evidence that I have those skills from a project, from a life experience, a work experience, whatever it is, and be prepared. I've helped people create such long Excel spreadsheets covering literally every single skill you can think of for specific roles, and it's a lot of work. And like you said at the very beginning, looking for work is a full-time. It's not sometimes. It is a full-time job. If you're serious about this, you've got no options. There's a countdown. You've got to find that job. Right.
Right.
So that's that's definitely a very simple but a key aspect of preparing for this. Plenty of stuff I can share as well, of course, but
Yeah.
that would say that, and of course being equipped with good questions to ask at the end. If you leave an interview without asking questions, or I think you've shared everything I want, it's like, oh my god, seriously, we spent 45 minutes, 1 hour talking, you've got no fucking questions. Sorry. No
So
bloody questions.
on that perspective, what I personally do, and I'm a big fan of using LLMs for a lot of things. As a person with ASD and slight ASD and ADHD, I struggle with certain tasks like preparation for interviews, which requires a lot of attention over details, emotional control, etc. This is problematic for me, right? So what I started utilizing this year around, I started utilizing my AI licenses, and I own one for Perplexity for research purposes, and one for Gemini with my Google Workspace for general purposes. If anybody in the audience owns a license for any specific AI, you have the capability to create specific personas with most of those chatbots. So what I did, I defined a recruiter persona, gave that recruiter persona specific qualities over that they're going to be expecting me they're expected to train me in interviewing and prepare me
the specific job description, information about the company, right? Whatever details you have.
So I created that persona as a recruiter. By the way, I named that persona Philip. You're the one that was helping me the most with a lot of recruitment processes all around the time, right? So I've been asking you plenty of questions from the human side of recruitment. So that only tracked. And what you can always do, you feed that persona with your CV. You probably have it on some sort of a Google Drive or a PDF. Just feed that in. Feed with keywords that you know that are related to your position that you want to have. Then feed it with also other context about you. And then when you chat with that persona, first of all, give it the job description. Ask that persona to assess that job description against your CV and see where the discrepancies are. And it's going to list where you match, where you don't match, where you match partially, what might be relevant or not. And it's going to do that a lot better than most humans because it has access to a lot more data. It gives you instant insight.
It's a beautiful example of how you can utilize now the very available technologies it is. And actually,
exactly.
I do this quite often. I have my little, let's say, it's actually quite funny. It made me hilarious because last time I was doing this, I was having a conversation with ChatGPT, one of my bots, and my wife in the middle of the night comes down and says, "Who the hell are you talking to at this time of night?" I said, "Oh, it's only ChatGPT." You just like, "Oh my god." But yeah, just when you were sharing this, it did remind me of
Yeah, my wife used to bust me about talking to Google Assistant on my phone. The same thing, but another thing
you
I
can
did.
do it in the car. You can do it everywhere.
Absolutely.
You can have a chat if and you can just give it a simple prompt and tell it what you want to do. You can also practice in that way. But
as long as you give it context of what you're trying to achieve.
The more context you give, the better, of course, the results will be, of course. But I mean, yeah, it's very important. Like the confidence aspect, it's key, and just be yourself. I see Stefan wrote a nice message here. He remembers the day we had an interview, or it wasn't maybe an interview, it was more of a kind of introductory call. And he says here, as I was discussing with Philip during our past session, it also comes down to the talent of building a trusting and candid relationship out of the air. But that's it. I respect your time, you respect my time. Let's see if we can work out something here. I've got a task. I want to resolve this. are you the right person for it? This is where I am at. This is my understanding of the job. If you've got any questions, technical ones that I won't be able to answer, let me take them down. I'll get back to you, right? But let's have an honest chat about, at the end of the day, it's only work, right? And
Yeah.
you want it to work for you too. And for me, it's always been important getting to know candidates in terms of their current circumstances, their aspirations, and what's mega important for them.
And that's
And
part of preparation, to actually know and understand what is important to you, to understand what are your values, what do you value in a job, what is the most important quality of your manager, for example, right? And
absolutely,
if somebody asks me that, I've straight up I say transparency, right? Because this is something I value the most with management. If the management is transparent in terms of expectations and whatnot, for me that's a huge qualifier, right? But for other people, this will be something else, and this is homework to be done before an interview. And then on top of that, I don't know what you think about that, but I basically, if I know who my hiring manager is or the interviewer is, I basically go on LinkedIn, stalk the hell out of their LinkedIn, scrape a little bit of their posts, going a little bit back in time to see what they're posting, liking, download their LinkedIn profile as a PDF, and just feed that to an AI just to
you're really
see
utilizing
what
AI.
see what can pop up. And then based on that, with that context, prepared context, it's also, if you're struggling with creating really good questions for an interviewer, it just simply use that context, use all of that you build in an AI, and just ask AI to produce you some good questions. Of course, you'll have to probably modify them a little, but it will pop you out some really, really no bullshit questions that you can ask your interviewer, that they will force them to stop and really think about the answer, because these would not be questions that will be common in the
Yeah,
interviews that they're doing.
absolutely. Good questions. I mean, you could turn an interview around with good questions. One of my favorite ones, which can, if not used well, can really go downwards. Really, it's a bit of neuristic linguistic programming, and it's reverse psychology, and it's simple as this. If I'm, if you're talking to a hiring manager, or let's say, or even better, a peer who who's assessing you, and so
Yeah,
someone maybe a little bit more senior to you, but a peer, because you usually get that, right, as well, if
yeah.
technical interviews, right? Say, okay, so you've been here, Carol. So you've been working at this company for 2 years, right? According to LinkedIn. Oh yeah, that's right, that's correct. So tell me, like, between you and I, right? How do you enjoy working at this company? What's cool for you? What's a little bit, what irritates you? The cool thing about this question is they are going to love you ask that one, and they're going to spit it all out. They're going to talk you about the training, onboarding. Maybe if you twist their arms a little, they'll tell you about the challenging stuff as well.
Yeah.
That's when shit, I'm building a relationship now with this
Yeah.
person. That's cool. But they will be more likely to tell you the real picture of it if you talk to a peer at the level, let's say, assessing you and everything.
Yeah, because you're flipping the
And
script, that now you're
a
interviewing them and they get to talk.
don't ask the recruiter that question. I
No,
mean,
no.
you can, they'll do the pitch, the whole thing,
Yeah.
But that's a good question as a peer, who's assessing you on a technical side of view, because you'll get so much more information. You'll get the answers to training, the team, and then if a manager, for instance, the manager's great question. So it's like I forgot to ask the recruiter in my initial call, in the HR call or whatever, but maybe you could tell me. So why is it you're recruiting for this role? And that's definitely great information. It's like
Yeah.
the person left. It's a new position. Straight away, you got a lot of information for yourself, right? So okay, if someone left, then why did they leave? May I ask? I mean, that's
Yeah.
taking it too far. That's confidence, right? But
Yeah.
that's great information also for the hiring manager. This guy, this person is inquisitive. They
And
might
that's
respect it. They might be stressful. If they
might
get
be.
nervous and stressful, it's probably there's a reason behind it, because someone escaped that job, maybe, right, or ran away
Exactly.
or
So
something.
this is also a way to assess the company. And again, reminder: if you're in a recruitment process, it's not only that company recruiting you, but you're also recruiting that company in the sense
Absolutely, it's a
it's a
two-way
transactional two-way.
interview.
Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah. You're checking out your next family, right? So you want to make sure
maybe not family, but yeah,
I'm only joking, I
yeah.
hate that, I won't do it,
But
but
it is
important,
important to
human
ask those
thing.
questions because you're not only projecting your confidence about yourself in a context of that specific role, but also you're fishing for those red flags. And it's
If
very
you can
important
be
to feel for
selective,
that.
right?
Yeah,
If you can be selective, of course,
yeah,
if you're desperate, but no one's going to say you're desperate, no, and everything. But if you are, then of course, it's a different position you're in. However, it's important to ask this. I mean, at the end of the day, we spend more time at work than with our own families, right? So you might as well
yeah.
enjoy the people you're working with in some shape, way, or form, even if it's
And
just
not
online
get burned
meetings, right?
out by the culture, by the interactions in the
Yeah.
office,
So
by politics or
if you
other.
can, that's why I always say, even if you're in a stable, happy job, go for 1 or 2 interviews a year.
Mm,
Experience it, see what your value is on the market, see, how's it all go. One, you're always more employable when you're employed. And two, get a feel of what the market's out there like.
true.
You might, explore, be an opportunist, don't leave it for the last minute. And the worst
Hmm.
thing you can possibly do is quit your job and then start looking for work. I
Yeah,
mean, that's going to put you in a terrible spot, right?
that's a very unfortunate situation. And did that once. That wasn't fun. That was stressful.
Yeah, it can be.
I
And,
mean, I at that time the job market was very nice, so I actually found the job really quick. But uh, that wasn't a good fit, despite finding it very quickly. I thought it would be nice, good, but then I was still young and didn't have proper vetting techniques in my portfolio of skills. Now it's a
well,
little bit
it's a
different.
lesson you've learned, but,
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, like an ending note because we run here for over 2 hours now. So
kind of expected, wasn't it, Carol? We were talking about it.
yeah, yeah, we could go on for another two. That would be easy. But
Probably, yeah.
yeah, a key element in terms of being recruited and working with a recruiter and working further in interviews, come prepared, ask questions. The more questions you ask, the better it will be. You'll project your confidence. You'll be able to understand the context better. You'll get more information to make your decision easier, especially if you're just looking for a new job because you have a stable job and you're just looking for a new career path. You want to vet those companies then right? You want to do the research properly so that you get the good fit, the best fit for yourself rather than the first one in line. If you're desperate, yes. If you're unemployed, yes, this is a bit of a more difficult situation. You need that employment to get that financial stability so that you can move on from that. It's a little bit different. You have less options to work with, you less wiggle space, right? But in general, ask questions.
Absolutely. It's a two-way process, right? And if you have a gut feeling, it goes from both sides, right? If you have a gut feeling something's right, you probably believe in your gut feeling as well. Explore it if you can further, right? And you know, like I mentioned a couple of times today, changing jobs, moving jobs, starting desperately looking for a job. These are critical moments in your life. And yeah, you will feel appalled when recruiters ghost you. They don't recognize your skills, your
Yeah,
experience. It's the worst feeling ever, right? You feel like you're alone. Yeah. It's like all you're seeing is other people enjoying their jobs. LinkedIn is a fucked up place because when people are working, everything's beautiful, right? It's like an
yeah,
Instagram place, right? And when it comes to work, but when you're looking for work, it's a hard grind. Um,
it is.
keep keep going and utilize your network, really. I mean, like I've mentioned, utilize your network. Go out, hunt down your former colleagues, check out what they're up to, if you've had really bad experiences with them, then probably you want to reconnect with them. But find those you had good connections with. Think, who's the best? I don't know, who do I aspire to, who I know, who I've worked with in the past, who's absolutely amazing at their job. Take a look at what they're doing. Reach out to them. Ask for some advice. And like you say, when you're researching jobs, cool. If you want to apply, you can go apply crazy nowadays, of course, 100 jobs, and then you get no result. But I'd say do a little bit more research as well. Check out on LinkedIn. Do you have any common connections working there or have previously worked there? Remember, you need to be seen, you need to be visible. LinkedIn is a fantastic tool if used wisely. We've shared a lot of awesome tips. I think there's been some really cool things. I've learned a few things from you today as well, so it's amazing. And just be kind, be respectful,
and be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself, but also define who you're speaking to, the recruiter, what kind of recruiter you're speaking to. Be forgiving, I guess, because if you're going to be grumpy all your life about one company not getting back to you, well, don't buy from them, whatever they're selling or doing or offering.
Simply,
you probably won't, right? But just move on. It's not the end of the world. It's probably down to some human's mistake, and that's it. And they're probably a great laugh over a beer when you think about it, right?
Someday later, yeah. and remember that if somebody is behaving a certain way towards you, it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They might just be having a very shitty day, so their behavior is exactly the same way, or they might be having like something really going on in their life that they're behaving and acting out without any reason. It's not about you, it's about them. The rejections that you get from processes, it's still not about you, it's about the company searching for something. It wasn't a match, well, it happens.
Maybe you got away with that. Maybe you should be very fortunate that you didn't get that job, for instance, right?
Perhaps. You don't know and you will not know, but it's the rejection letters you get or ghosting that you get, it's not about you, it's about those companies. The way they behave, the way the recruiters behave, it's not about you as a candidate, it's about those people, those companies. Don't worry about it. It's very hard. I know, I lived through that over the last 3 months. Every single rejection. Every single rejection letter that I got, especially those, and not over 90% of those were based on insufficient language skills, because I'm expected to speak Dutch, and I speak Dutch, but sometimes nobody even tested that. So those rejection letters, they hit hard. They're very difficult to swallow. Again, not about you. They do not discredit your value as a specialist, as a person, as a developer, architect, tester, whoever else. That's a very important note here, because recruitment for the candidate is hard. It's stressful. You're applying hundreds of CVs. It's a drama. But unfortunately, that's what the market is. We can make that a little bit easier with tips and tricks and changing your CV, changing your LinkedIn profile, creating that visibility for yourself, going to networking events, meeting new people, having those conversations, or just reaching out to your LinkedIn network. Perfectly fine as well. But it's going to be hard work anyways. And if you're unemployed, that's going to be triple the hard work, because you get the stress of your financial stability, trying to find new gig to be stable again, right? Deep breath. And what was that? The British Second World War poster? Keep calm and carry on, right?
Keep calm and carry on. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the only way about it. But absolutely, it's going to be definitely stressful and difficult to do.
I always have this. I always share this with, and I've seen some amazing stories in the world of junior roles, which are pretty much non-existent today.
Unfortunately,
I've seen so many success stories. I've been part of them as well, which is amazing. And I just gotta say, perseverance, determination is a big thing, and it's easily said than done.
Yeah.
But those who are persistent and determined will succeed. It's as simple as that. And
Yeah.
it's hard to say. You say, "Oh yeah, it's easy for you to say you've got a job." Well, actually,
Well,
I've been
actually,
through it all many times in my life, and I've utilized LinkedIn in such a way that I feel confident. You know, even if I were to lose everything I had today, I would start grinding again from scratch. You know,
yeah,
you know, it's tough out there. I know I've had so many. I've got a foundation where I help people looking for work. You know, people need support. So if you really are struggling, you desperately need to find a mentor, someone who's going to help you out. You know, someone who you can just bounce your ideas off. You know, Carol, you had this, right? We connected. I know you've got a lot of recruiters in your connection, in
yeah,
your network that you connect with, but you know, you need this. You need to have a different perspective on things. You know,
yeah.
and you know, good people will help. So you know, just go out there and find good people to support you in your
Yeah,
process.
if you don't have a network, just reach out to random people. There are people out there that will help you just because they can, not because they have to, not because they need to. They will help you because they can, and just grow your network. Ask for help. Ask for them for their opinion on things. Send them your CV for them to help you redo that CV. Ask them their opinion on about your LinkedIn profile. They'll help you. There are
Yeah,
people like that.
absolutely.
That's not a problem. You and me included, right? If a random person would approach me on LinkedIn to uh, ask me a question about, hey, what do you think about my LinkedIn profile or CV? I wouldn't mind answering that. Maybe I might not have time for that on the spot.
Yeah, but
That
you
happens.
would want to
But
help if you could, right?
I would say, hey, can you remind me about that in about 8 hours when I'm off my job, and I'll have more time on my hands and more space in my brain to look at it and actually put the time into to look at it, and then I'm happy to do so. At the moment,
That's
I'm like
that's
busy in
good
a
to
meeting or
know. So
something.
next time I get asked that, I'll just send them your way then.
Don't spam me though, because I'll stop doing that then.
No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
All
But
right.
yeah, thank you so much for this experience, Carol, and thank you for those who've persistently, determinedly stayed with us to the end.
Yeah.
Well done.
And we'll be back with the topic. We'll grab Gabby somewhere in October or November. We'll be back on the topic of recruitment. We'll dive into the recruitment tools and to see how recruiters actually search for people. Gabby is a whiz at Boolean searches. You know your stuff with LinkedIn tools. And we'll dive into that later in the year just to show you what else we can do and how else to prepare for a job hunt, job search. And if you are interested in topics also related to burnout or cognitive load or basically mental health, we'll be having those on the stream as well. Actually, now I'm going to switch here a little bit. Showtime. The next stream around, which is next week, literally next week, is with Radek Korszewski, who's a lean agile coach and a consultant, and I think the only accredited Kanban trainer in Poland. And we're going to be talking about recognizing and managing cognitive load, which is something that not a lot of people talk about, but it's very important for psychological health in the workplace, especially in IT, because we deal with a lot of load, a lot of information. And we'll be diving into that topic as well, amongst other technical topics that are down the line with a loosely coupled live stream. So hop on the stream next week, subscribe to our social media. You can read more of the technical articles on Bridging the Gap EU.com and on Substack. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to get notified, or just follow me on LinkedIn. If you don't have me in your network on LinkedIn, just pop an invite or click follow on my profile, and you'll get all those posts about all those different things. And the live stream is loosely coupled, so we're loosely coupling the topics that are related to IT work and the field of enterprise application integration. So yeah, join the next stream. And Philip, we'll see each other on the live stream somewhere in October, November. I'll be reaching out in a DM to schedule that later when Gabby recovers from her health-related issues.
Yeah, I look forward to that and can't wait.
That is going to be a
Thank
very
you all
fun one. All right. Thank you all for joining the stream today, and see you soon.